We just made a video talking about these GameCube-style Joy-Cons, which was something that I thought was a super cool idea, even if I wasn't a super huge fan of the actual final execution of the controller. But something that kind of came up while trying them out and talking about them a little bit was this idea that I'm really surprised Nintendo hasn't actually pursued more concepts like this. And I've just been thinking more and more about it. I need to get some thoughts out about this. See, back when the Nintendo Switch was first kind of initially leaked in the form of patents, one of the things that we talked about a lot was the idea of, oh, this is really cool, the system has this kind of modular approach. And there was two aspects to that. The idea that you could take these detachable controllers and use them with different other accessories, which is something Nintendo has messed with a little bit. We'll talk more about that. But then also this idea that, hey, this could also mean that there are other things you could slot the Switch into, and that part hasn't really happened at all. Nintendo has been treating the Joy-Cons a lot like the Wii Remote back from the Wii, in that the idea is that, cool, it's this motion-based controller, and if you wanted to, you can put it into different things in order to take advantage of those motion controls and change the way people interact with it. And there's been some cool ideas with it, some of which aren't entirely original. We've got like the wheel attachment for playing racing games, which makes sense. And on a slightly weirder spectrum that was at least cool in concept was Nintendo Labo, where you could build these crazy cardboard things and actually play games interactive with them. The only problem is, at the end of the day, not a lot of people want to actually do cardboard crafting to get their controller. And of course, the most recent execution of this idea that actually is, I think, one of the more unique and interesting ones Nintendo has done is the Ring Fit. This idea of taking the Joy-Con, strapping one to your leg, putting one on the ring attachment, and making a new fitness-style game that doesn't really require you to buy any kind of super big or new fancy piece of equipment. It just ties into how the Joy-Cons already work and charges a little more than a game normally would in order to get those extra accessories. And that is, I think, a really cool idea and another way of approaching higher innovation for the Switch. But again, all of this is focused on treating just the Joy-Cons as being something that can be slotted into stuff. It's ignoring the fact that the Switch itself is a portable small console. It has these rail attachments, and there could be way more things we could choose to attach to the Switch beyond just those traditional controllers. Don't get me wrong, I actually really like the regular Joy-Con. I think that if we were to only ever have one single kind of controller that goes on the side of the Switch, this is one of the best possible balances we could get. It's still small and portable while it's attached to the system, it's comfortable when you're holding them separately wirelessly, could use a little work while you're holding them in handheld mode, but that's the trade-off for the portability. By the way, I know you noticed this shirt in the background. If you want to check it out along with a bunch of other designs that we're now starting to release, make sure to check out the link down below. But just because these are a really good balance that makes a great stock choice for the Switch doesn't mean that they are the only option Nintendo could ever make. I mean, look, they definitely still have their problems. While they are still portable, this comes at the major sacrifice of comfort for a lot of people, thus the interest in larger Joy-Cons. I cannot tell you how many times I have people ask me, well, of all these unlicensed ones that are super cheap online but are bigger, which one should I grab? In which case, a lot of times nowadays, I just yell, get the SplitPad Pro, because it's at least large and licensed. But that's the point. People are looking for these alternatives that Nintendo isn't themselves offering, which is weird to me. Now I realize part of the argument against this is, well, yeah, it's a lot more expensive to create new controllers, they're not necessarily sure if those are going to sell well, but that doesn't really fully resonate with me because Nintendo has released other controllers kind of like this, but nothing that's actually pushed the idea of being something interesting and new, but instead is the idea of just being a novelty to sell alongside the system. For instance, when Nintendo Switch Online was first launched, we got those NES Joy-Cons that go on the side, and that's cool, that's a neat idea, but it doesn't actually do anything new. It's just, hey, do you want to play with a regular NES controller instead of a Joy-Con? There you go. And they did it kind of, again, with the SNES controllers, where it was a wireless connection. It just didn't actually have the slide rails because then shoulder buttons wouldn't work, whole thing. The point is that Nintendo has invested in making Joy-Con alternatives, but they haven't focused on ones that are actually meant for the Switch. It's just been focused on reliving past consoles. And the thing is, there is absolutely a market for this that I think Nintendo is completely missing out on, because it's something that we've seen a couple companies mess with a little bit. We have a couple licensed alternatives that are very popular, whether that's Hori's D-Pad Joy-Con, which gives you a D-Pad when you're using the Switch in portable mode, or even the SplitPad Pro, which is the first real option we've gotten to have larger, more comfortable controls on the Switch. And I love that those things exist, but it's just really weird to me that we're not seeing Nintendo do it themselves and give us even more options. Something I find really interesting too is the idea of how you can balance out this concept of bringing back nostalgic things people like while also making something that is functionally meant to be used on the Switch. For instance, the NES and SNES controllers are only meant to be used sideways. You can't use them while they're connected to the Switch, and if you try it, it's just not very comfortable at all. But there are ways to make newer controllers that offer things that call back to older systems while still offering comfort. I mean, a simple Google search will show you how many different crazy mockups people have done for things like full-blown GameCube controllers or N64 controllers on the side of the system, other controllers inspired by other past designs, or even just a more traditional Pro Controller layout that looks like modern systems. And what's really infuriating about this is that Nintendo has messed with this idea. There are so many different patents that have surfaced of alternative Joy-Con designs. Now, to be fair, some of those are very outdated designs that are usually focused on what they could have done instead of the final design they landed on, and some of them do get a little bit weird, like having a lot of D-pads instead of just the one or none like the final that we got, and even the hinged Joy-Con that we talked about more recently. So there's proof that Nintendo has been messing with ideas, but nothing has really actually happened yet, and we're now over 2 years into the Switch's life cycle. Really, at this point, if we were to see any kind of interesting, cool, official alternative design, we might have to wait for Switch Pro. I mean, really, think about it. If the regular Switch Pro tablet was the same size, dimensions, and everything as the regular Switch, there's not really any kind of visual indication that it is this cool, new, exciting, bigger thing. And so, one of the ways that could be changed is if the next system included also some kind of new, updated version of the Joy-Cons. Perhaps even something that could be called Joy-Con Pros, that walks that kind of balancing line between what is useful and handy about the Switch Pro controller, but bringing them to that attachment aspect that Joy-Cons have. I'm not bringing all this up because I'm mad at Nintendo and think they're doing a horrible job or anything like that. Look, the Switch is obviously a huge success, and there's been a lot that's gone right about it. I look at the main Switch system itself, and I see all this potential for more that can be done with it that isn't being explored. You know, I really think Nintendo came into this idea that in and of itself is super great, where it's this system that's modular in design, you can use it on a TV, you can use it on the go, but there is so much more it's capable of that's not being tapped into. You know, when I talk about the idea of running Android on a Switch, I know Nintendo's never going to actually do that. I just think it's a neat idea. But when it comes to controllers like this, I think they have talked about it. I just want to see that follow through happen.